Okay, hi everyone. So welcome to this session on how to accompany change resistance to innovation. My name is Preeti Raman. I'm from the University of Toronto, OISE. I'm the chair of this session. We have Joan Butterworth and Marie-Pierre Clavette facilitating and presenting here for us in this session. And before I give them the floor, there are a few things that I need to share. One, of course, is that this session is being recorded. So if you feel uncomfortable being recorded, please consider switching your camera off and or renaming yourself. Second, we are using closed captioning. So feel free to hide the subtitles by clicking on more and hide subtitle in your Zoom window so you don't have to see the subtitles. You can also turn them back on at any time by clicking on more on Zoom at the very bottom in the bar at the bottom and show subtitle. I'm gonna if you have any questions during the session, please use the chat to type them in. And please make sure you keep your microphone muted when you're not talking, and feel free to unmute when asked to do so. Okay, I'm going to hand over the floor to you, Joan.
Thank you so much, Preeti. Welcome, everybody. It's lovely to be here today. Thank you so much for joining us for How to Accompany Change Resistance to Innovation in Education. And I work at McGill University in co-curricular education as a leadership training facilitator and engagement facilitator as well. Have been working with trying to find innovative and new ways, processes to engage diversity and be inclusive. And it's been fantastic to be working with Marie-Pierre Clavette. We met through a few workshops that we did together, delving into innovative processes and approaches. We have one here for you today. And so I hope I'll pass it over to Marie-Pierre also to just introduce herself and her just before we jump in.
Hi everyone, I'm Marie-Pierre. I'm from Quebec in Mauricie now. I have deported myself in the middle of the wood during the pandemic, and I'm intending to stay here as much as I can. So I work as a teacher at the Cégep of Victoriaville in continuous learning with adults who are perfectioning themselves as facilitator and as people who work with community in a community development intention. So my students are from all over Quebec, and we have been online since the program has been created online. So we have been online for since the beginning 10 years ago. And I'm also a facilitator, a consultant. So I work with many groups who want to be better at working together and try to co-construct together and talk to each other, listen better to each other. So that's my my passion.
Great, exactly. Thank you. And just having listened to some of the keynote that just started, exactly, the conversations, how to connect are so important. Today's session, we really hope that you'll take an interesting tool away for your tool set. So thank you so much again for joining us. Our intention today is, as you see, to bring people together to reflect on our blind spots as educators and learners in our highly challenging context. So we're going to be, I'm not going to read out the desirable outcomes, but really great opportunity to share all your pre-existing experience and expertise with your different fields and have a really an interesting emergent conversation and practices. So go on to our next slide.
So we have a little check-in, a little introduction in a more introspective way. Sorry for my English. So the workshop is highly interactive, but we like to start with ourselves, diving a little with how we feel, what everything that happened recently. So I have a few questions to ask you. First, I hope you have a sheet of paper close and a pen. And I will ask you to draw 2 lines like this to have 4 squares. In the middle, you have 1 vertical line, 1 horizontal line. That's fine. And we're gonna take a minute of silence and to be centered, and we will draw a spiral. We will start in the middle of the 2 lines crossing each other and draw slowly and very tightly a spiral, and just let ourselves absorb in this meditative quick practice. Everyone has a spiral. I hope you enjoyed that quick moment of silence. And then the first question will be in this quadrant at the top right of the sheet. And the question we are asking ourselves at this moment is, what innovations have sparked in our field of education in the last year? So it's kind of a brainstorm to start one by one. And we write down all kind of innovation that comes to mind. Second question, what resistance have we encountered while experiencing those innovations?
Sorry, Marie-Pierre, which quadrant do we put that in?
We go like this. So this is the second.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm being a good student. I don't want to get it wrong.
Yeah, this is the right quadrant. We can think about resistance from our students, maybe from our colleagues, from our boss, and from ourselves too. You have a few ideas? Third question would be at the bottom right list. What are we not learning right now as educators? So we have been good at adapting ourselves and trying many things. We are, we have been evolving a lot, but some things have not been learned yet. And our last question, the last quadrant. What inner shift need to happen to complete this transformational time we find ourselves in as educators? That's a very nice sentence, and Joan has helped me to write it down. So if we are thinking about accompanying change, what can shift? What can be shift? How can we make sure that this crisis will have a positive impact for the future? You have a few ideas? Ready to share? Okay, so let Joan present you how we will work together for the rest of the workshop.
Okay. So thank you, Marie-Pierre. So exactly this, we're now going to dive into the Café Conversation. And this is, this comes from, you'll find this on liberating structures, and it's a really interesting process. There are some agreements that we encourage everyone to think of before we go into the actual structure of the Café Conversation. So that is to suspend judgment as best you can, to stay open and really listen to each other, respect one another, seek to understand rather than to persuade. So to really take the time to feel that receptivity of listening. So allow yourself to really listen to each other as well. Invite and honor diverse opinions. Speak what has personal heart. So in the academic environment, sometimes there's not much room for feeling. So this is an opportunity to really kind of also welcome to the conversations, which is very, can be so foundational too. And go for honesty and depth with and on and on. So just exactly trying to speak with intent and trust your words that for that impact, but to, because of the time limit, keep that intent and not go on. Exactly. So those are our conversational agreements, and we'll put this in the chat after as well. This is the flow. So the flow, we'll put this in the chat so you'll have these instructions, but we'll be putting you into breakout rooms, and so you'll be in small groups so that you'll be able to go through this flow together and experience what a cafe conversation is like with a few questions to guide you. What you'll be doing in the breakout rooms is just maybe have somebody who's going to kind of keep track of time. And when you get in there, just take 1 minute, 1 minute each, do a go around, and each participant relates to the subject. So you just talk about how you relate to the subject. After that, after you've done 1 round for everybody, you take round 2. You've also had a chance to listen to each other. So after you speak with listening to each other, you can like think of what you're hearing from each person. So the second round, you're reporting on what you heard that's important, that struck you during the first round. And so you have 2 minutes each to talk about that, up to 2 minutes. If you take a bit less, that's fine. More than the timekeeper might do something like just put their hand up to kind of signal when it's getting close to that time. So that's the very structured part to get the conversations going. And then round 3, you'll have 25 minutes for an open conversation to continue on from along on the subject. And so that again gives you a chance to kind of go over the different things that you've heard. Round 4, share your takeaways for 5 minutes. So after 25 minutes, just reflect and kind of go, what are our takeaways from this? So those are the rounds, and I'll put let's see.
I will put the information on the chat.
Okay. So you can use the questions that we just had also to guide that conversation. So you're using what you've used in your spiral journal to start off the conversation.
So I'll do two groups.
Okay. Any questions on? You'll be in small groups of about 5, I think. Is that right?
And 2 groups of 7. Is it good?
Do you want to try? And otherwise, it would be three groups of how many?
We are the 2 of us, so it's 13, and even pretty, so it's 12. I think 2 groups is going to be fun.
Okay.
Okay, enjoy. If you have questions, you can ask us to come, and we will go see how it goes.
And you should have an invitation.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can stay here, and if anybody joins in, I can assign them to a breakout room.
Okay.
Yeah,
We'll pause the recording.
sure.
That is terrible. When you move from breakout rooms to I would encourage you to keep your camera open if it's okay with you to have those this final conversation. So I have a few questions for you. We would like to know, Joan and I, what happened for you during this workshop, during this conversation.
Yeah. And you can unmute yourself if you'd like, or put or add it in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gina.
So basically for me, I felt more supported in a way. I don't know why. Sometimes behind this plastic screen, whatever screen, you feel alone, right? Like you feel you're in your own world. But listening to my feelings from others, so made me feel like you're strong, you can do it, like everybody's doing it. So yeah, so for me, this was like a thank you for everyone, because everyone is going through the same things, and like, so it made me kind of stronger today. Thank you.
I thought I was in the same group as Gina, but I did think that we had a very diverse group, but we did have shared perspectives, and when somebody would point something out, we would all be like, okay, yes, absolutely, even though all of us were very different in where we're teaching and what we're teaching, and even at what stage we are in our career, and whether if we went to the dark side or not.
No, I would agree with Carol. I was in that group as well. And it was just interesting, all over the place, very, not similar, but similar experiences, it was the same sort of thing. It was good to hear. I think that was important. Yeah, it would almost be interesting to hold the same kind of meeting next year after we're all back and see what has happened, like that. That would be the most interesting.
Wow. So it's kind of like it builds a community very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, lots of nods. Would some people from the other breakout room want to comment as well?
Well, I was not expecting people to come from all over. I was expecting everyone to be from Dawson. I was pleasantly surprised that we had colleagues with us from out of Quebec. So that was, I think I mentioned, it was like encouraging and frightening at the same time that everyone from coast to coast was facing the same issues.
Is there someone that has not happened for you in this workshop that could have happened, or that could happen in another context? Enough twisted question to look at the other sides.
I think you're going to have.
Oops, I'm sorry.
I don't even see anyone who's talking. There we go.
I just about think we have to give ourselves a little bit of time before we can answer that question fully. You may want to ask that question on Friday morning and see what response you get.
Yeah, sure. You could probably will receive an evaluation form, and you could give us feedback about it.
But I fill those out about as much as the students fill out course evaluation.
I do think that the opportunity to participate in conferences virtually is I will be interested to see if that actually is something that continues, just because of the cost that was traditionally associated and the decreasing costs that institutions have to support that. And so I think that for me, that's been one of the most beneficial that I've heard about conferences, and even sort of at the last minute. And because my schedule's been more flexible, I've been able to participate in those. But then, you know, it is, I know, and there are the outside little social things. I haven't really done those. So I enjoy the workshops, but I thought that this was helpful, and to have the breakout rooms and everybody sort of stayed on task in our group anyway.
Yeah, I like also, by the way, the online conferences, and even last week I participated in one conference, and this week with you guys, and you're using exactly the same platform, Grenadini, I think. The wonderful thing for me is I can actually make my own schedule and see directly if there is a conflict, because for instance, when it's just printed, I'm constantly lost where I have to go. But the missing part is the socializing, right? It was good at lunch in the some break, not breakdown, what was the gaffer town. It was interesting, but still it's in front of the computer, and I prefer to go outside on the patio, I'll be honest with you. But still, just to be able to hear to all the talks and have the small discussion circles, that's fantastic. And even if you cannot make it, you can listen after that to the recording. That's even wonderful, right?
For me, it's environmentally. Flying to conferences now, I seriously have to question. And then the other thing that was brought up at another place was that the cost of conferences is so great that it's not always feasible for those who are, you know, first teaching or being not able to get a grant or something to pay their way to go. And so it limits who can go to these conferences. So I think I would really like to see, you know, some of these, or a majority of these, seriously considered to have a half of the conference online and maybe half in person or something. But it's a privilege to go, and it costs money.
I agree with that. I'm wondering about what those sorts of hybrid conferences would look like, and how best to facilitate those things so that people who are attending from a distance aren't getting less of an experience.
Next, a challenge for the future. Would you like, for the last question we have for you is, would you like to share one thing, it could be one word in the chat, on how you will, what do you get to better accompany change and innovation in your next weeks before summer, or preparing for the fall? Because I've heard a lot of
One word for me would be ignore. Ignore the people who don't want to change and push on.
For me, it's going to be don't give up. Because if you try it once, it does not work. At least you know why it did not work, and you try better next time until you find the best way.
I'm going to go back to what we talked in our group. I think it's vulnerability. I think we have to be really open about, there are things that we know, there are things that we don't know, and we're going to make mistakes, and that's part of the process.
okay, even though I'm in New Mexico, I'm like a huge Louise Penny fan. And so I, over the last 6 months, have like read all of the Inspector Gamache books, right? I'm just like obsessed with those. But I will say that vulnerability of being able to tell the students, I don't know, I need help, I'm sorry, I was wrong. And so that is like my mantra that I learned from Inspector Gamache and my love of Quebec and that area.
Thanks.
Well, that's more culturally enriching than being a Montreal Alouettes fan right now.
Well, I would say keep your connection with nature outside. It will make you strong. It will definitely make you ignore lots of things. And it will heal you. So keep the connection with nature. So, yep.
Joan, do you want to have the final word before we close?
Oh, yes, exactly. Thank you. So those were such great conversations. I hope exactly it's as a model, we really just wanted to like immerse you in the experience. And then it was such an honor and privilege to hear some of your conversations and what evolved, and as you were noting, like that connection to each other. I know I also heard from students that I worked with how they'd be sent into breakout rooms last semester and nobody would talk. and because when they came back from the breakout rooms, the example I had was that they knew that the teacher was just going to say, give them the answer. And so it made me really think of like how there are really interesting tools like this. And Marie-Pierre is always like, has a whole bunch of these that she goes, oh, there's this, there's this, there's this. But exactly to experience it, to see how it works for you. And it's accessible. It's something that you can, with changing the format a little bit, the questions, it can go into other contexts. So thank you so much for your time. And Preeti also for the moderation. Thank you so much to Saltise and Marie-Pierre. But exactly, if you have other questions, we'll be here for a few minutes as well.